Good morning, everybody. So I'm getting more information that's coming forth on this case that we're able to release. We want to be as transparent as we can with that information, but of course it's an active investigation, so I have to be careful what I release and when I release it. But I have quite a bit of additional information, more details that I can release to you today. One of the questions we've gotten from a number of sources is how many rounds were fired, and we've been able to determine that. The suspect fired approximately 39 rounds during the course of this event, and the Gilroy police officers, there was 3 officers that fired, and between the 3 of them they fired a total of 18 rounds. The suspect was hit by the police officer's gunfire multiple times. I do not yet have a definitive finding from the coroner's office on exactly where those rounds hit him or exactly how many rounds, only to say that he was hit multiple times at this point. The other thing that was important to us was whether or not any of the people that were killed in this event were struck by friendly fire or by police officers' rounds. And we've been able to determine that none of the people that died in this incident were struck by friendly fire. They were all killed by the suspect. I'd also been asked about the suspect, whether he was wearing any kind of body armor or a bullet-resistant vest. And that is confirmed that he was wearing a bullet-resistant type vest at the time of the incident. Some of the information regarding his armament, the weapons, how prepared was he? We know now that he had a 75-round drum magazine that would fit into this weapon. We recovered that, and it had 71 rounds left in the drum. He had 2 40-round magazines on his body. For the weapon, he had 2 40-round magazines that were on the ground, and he had 1 40-round magazine that they described to me as being loose on or near him, and I'm not exactly sure the location of that one. I told you the other day that there was a shotgun located in the vehicle, which has been confirmed. It was a Remington 870 shotgun that was located in the vehicle. The other item that generated a lot of interest was the bag or the backpack or something that was found in the creek. We now know what was in that bag, and I'll go ahead and give you that information as well. There was just 2 loose rounds for the rifle that he had that were in the bottom of the bag. He had a scope, a rifle scope of some sort in the bag, a flashlight and a shovel, and 2 additional loaded 40-round magazines for the gun. And then he had 4 loose buckshot rounds, which would have been for the shotgun. And that was the only contents that were in the bag. And so that's my additional detailed information that I was going to give today. I'm going to turn it over to the FBI because I think they've got much more information about the status of their investigation and what's going on out at the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning. My name is John Bennett, and I'm the Special Agent in charge of FBI San Francisco. Before I provide an update, I want to say something to the families of Stephen, Kayla, and Trevor. I know nothing we can say or do will ever bring back your loved ones, but I want you to know that everything that law enforcement is doing, from our methodical examination of our evidence to our outreach to all the victims and their families to our ongoing investigation, everything is being done with you in our minds. And we are very sorry for your loss. The FBI Evidence Response Team has concluded our collection at Christmas Hill Park. We have now turned the park back over to the city. I appreciate the public's patience while we process the scene carefully, slowly, and methodically. The crime scene was expansive. We brought in significant FBI resources from around the country to do this as thoroughly and as quickly as we can. Our victim specialists continue to work with our local partners to support all of you who have been directly affected by this crime through the Family Assistance Center, and I want to thank them all for their tireless efforts. Our collection and review of the digital media in this case is ongoing. We are continuing to access data on several devices. We have not made a final investigative conclusion into the motive of the shooter. However, we have uncovered evidence throughout the course of our investigation that the shooter was exploring violent ideologies. We have seen a fractured ideology. The shooter appeared to have an interest in varying, competing violent ideologies. As we continue to exploit his digital media, we are striving to find several things. What, if any, ideology he had actually settled on? Who, if anyone, he may have been in contact with regarding these ideologies? Who, if anyone, helped him or had advanced knowledge of his intentions? And why he committed this specific act of violence? Much of our work remains ongoing. One piece of evidence does not necessarily constitute a motive, hence the need for a thorough, methodical investigation. The FBI and the Gilroy Police Department investigators have uncovered a list of organizations on the subject's digital media that may have been potential targets of violence. These organizations from across the country include religious institutions, federal buildings, courthouses, political organizations from both major political parties, and the Gilroy Garlic Festival. Even though the threat appears to have been mitigated by the subject's death, the FBI has a responsibility to notify individuals and organizations of potential threats or acts of violence. We are in the process of notifying those groups. However, we will not be releasing or confirming the names of any specific organizations at this time out of respect for their privacy and their safety. Due to the discovery of the target list, as well as other information we have encountered in this investigation, the FBI has opened a full domestic terrorism investigation into this mass shooting. I understand that several people have questions as to why we did not open this investigation sooner. And I want to provide some additional information on how this process works. An act of violence alone, even a large scale and horrifying as it may seem, does not necessarily give us the legal authority to open a federal terrorism investigation. A federal domestic terrorism case requires several things. It requires the existence of a potential federal violation. It requires the unlawful use of force or violence or the threat of force or violence, and most importantly, the existence of ideological motivation. Having a belief system and also committing an act of violence does not necessarily make that an act of terrorism, nor does it give a clear motive. We have to determine that individual's ideology caused them to commit the act of violence in furtherance of their political and social goals. We are still working to determine the motive for this crime. However, due to the information we have found thus far, the FBI has opened this full domestic terrorism investigation. It is critically important for us to ensure there is no ongoing threat to any community. This case is ongoing, so we cannot provide detailed information into our investigative activities at this time. It is absolutely important that we do this the right way. Finally, I want to thank the public for your patience as we continue to conduct this investigation carefully and methodically and appropriately under our legal authorities. Thank you to all the organizations that have stepped up to help this community as the grieving continues and the healing process now begins. Gilroy Strong is not just a t-shirt. It is who you are. This community has been incredible. We have been embedded here for several days now, and we've seen firsthand how all of you have come together to support one another and the police departments. And I want to thank you all. At this point, I'm willing to take some questions.
Can you please go through the target list again?
I'm sorry, sir?
Can you please run through what organizations were targeted, and can you be a little bit more specific, if you can, in terms of how those were uncovered? Was there, a list that, a basic target list, or did you piece it all together?
They're through the digital media examinations and analysis. we find what we believe are targets of interest of this individual. And as I said, they are religious, they are government, they are political parties, both sides of the house. So again, it's a fractured interest in targets. There was nothing that was all one side or the other.
And if I could follow up, was there like a, did it get to the point where there was like a specific courthouse, a specific church, things of that nature?
Yes, ma'am.
Were there any specific individuals named in the target list or what you discovered?
No specific names.
Was he a white nationalist
With the digital
ideology?
media investigation, have you uncovered any link, or can you officially rule out any link between the incidents that occurred over the weekend?
I'm not prepared to talk about those other ones, so I just don't have that information.
Have you ever heard any ideologies that you mentioned, is white nationalism part of that?
We're still exploring those right now, so we're not ready to make that determination yet.
Rule it out?
Cannot rule it out.
During the investigation last week, have you uncovered any evidence that he had any support from anyone, logistics or any encouragement?
No.
Have you been talking with his family? Have you been able to get in touch with his brother at all during this investigation?
We have been in contact with the family.
Are you ruling out the Instagram account? Have you been able to rule that out?
We are still exploring that piece of the investigation. It's an ongoing investigation, so I can't speak to that right now, sir.
Just to follow up, was there a manifesto left behind? Do we have any indication of that?
There is no manifesto.
I know you say you can't go into specifics of the targets, but you mentioned both political parties. How about in terms of religions? Were there multiple religions, or was it one religious ideology?
I don't have that information in front of me right now. I know there were religious affiliated groups.
Was there any reason to believe that he was inspired by other mass shootings in the past?
No.
Are you at least able to narrow it down, these institutions? Are these all based here in the Santa Clara County area, or are they more throughout the state, or?
They're nationwide.
Is there a timeline for any of these targets to be hit besides the Gilroy Garlic Festival, which has a specific date?
There's no timeline.
Is there any indication that he targeted something, a smaller group, or vandalized something prior to this incident?
No.
You know where his weapons came from?
I believe the chief said that they've been purchased legally in Nevada.
All of them?
Oh, the
Yeah, the shotgun and
Including the rounds and?
I'm not sure of the ammunition yet.
that I don't know.
We don't know that yet.
Is his family being helpful?
We can't talk about who we're talking with right now, but we have had multiple interviews with many people in the area.
Are they surprised?
I don't have that information.
Can you tell us what's next? So you're releasing Christmas Hill Park. Does that mean the community can go back in there? And also, what are the next steps for the FBI? How many agents are going to remain in this area?
Sure, we're committed here until the job is done. We are going to release that back, and we have turned it over. Our evidence collection, as I said, is complete. However, we are still working with victim services to get the vendors to get the rest of their belongings out of the park. We anticipate that to take another day, but there's no more evidence collection. Our evidence response teams have now pivoted and have been reassigned to other investigative priorities in the United States.
How much is the likelihood that you will come up with no motive at the end of it?
That is always a possibility. This is in some cases that an individual we may never see that, or may never be able to determine if there was an ideology or not. So that is a real possibility, sir.
To clarify, where was his place of residence when he purchased the shotgun and rifle?
I don't have that information, so we'll have to figure that out.
Is there any evidence that he was inspired by any specific people or organizations?
The investigation is ongoing right now, and I'm going to hold that right now.
Is there any event in his life history that turned him to these ideologies? Anything you discovered?
We haven't seen anything like that yet.
Out of the list of locations, did he physically visit any of them?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Out of the list of locations, did he physically visit any of them?
We're following up on that right now.
We've learned a lot in a very short time about the suspects in Dayton and El Paso. Why is that not the case here?
Right now, I'm not prepared to talk about those on there. This is our, the FBI provided police assistance, technical assistance to the Gilroy Police Department. As I said before, you need several things in order for this to become a federal investigation, and that includes not just an ideology, but the threat of violence, and there has to be an underlying federal crime as well. All right.
Now, because the suspect is deceased, and you open a federal investigation, what transpires? What do you do, with this domestic terrorism investigation? What happens?
Sure. This now becomes part of the FBI San Francisco's portfolio. We assign it to a particular squad and group of individuals, and they now have the legal authorities to send out subpoenas and search warrants. Under the police assistance one, we were unable to do that until we have a full predicated FBI investigation open. Now that that is open, we can start cutting the leads to across the country to further investigate this, and Gilroy can get back to being the great department that they are.
But you're looking for other suspects, other associates he may have had?
We are looking for wherever the evidence takes us.
Can you
Was the
expand on that?
firearm
No motives,
ammunition-
but you say the ideologies. Can you explore as to looking into the motive, at the same time saying he was exploring violent ideologies? Can you expand onto that?
No. Sorry.
Was the firearm, ammunition, or magazine illegal to own?
Under California, I'm federal, so under California law, I couldn't tell you that. I think I'm going to end there.
Scott, I have one for the chief.
Chief.
I wanted to make one more statement too.
You
Just-
mentioned none of the fatal victims were struck by friendly fire. Was anyone wounded potentially by friendly fire?
Not that we know of. Again, there's so many people and so much evidence that I can't say definitively until the coroner's office and other investigative elements tell us what they uncovered. But at this point, there's no indication that anyone was struck with friendly fire.
And how many times did your officers strike him with gunfire?
I don't have that definitive answer yet. Again, that comes out of the coroner's office, and they will release that report when they're ready, and they're not ready to do that yet.
Chief, just curious what you make of the FBI's announcement in terms of the target list.
Well, I think, I can't say enough about the FBI and the cooperation and the resources that they've dedicated to the city of Gilroy. This is a very large event, certainly beyond the capabilities of our department to handle on their own. And I think as the leads take us in this direction, to have their involvement is a very positive thing.
Chief, do you have any comments as far as the shootings after the Gilroy Garlic Festival shooting in both El Paso and in Ohio?
Well, having lived through this, I can only know what they're going through. And, it's very sad that we have people that do these kinds of things. I want to, before I close, one additional thing. The FBI is done with the park in the processing, but just for our local folks, for our community, that people that may want to go visit that location, that does not mean that the park is open to the public, because we still have a lot of people have to recover their personal belongings and whatnot. So we're maintaining a presence out there. We're keeping that park closed until all the vendors and all the people that have personal property in there can get in and remove their stuff. And once all that process is done, then we'll open the park back up to where people would go down inside there. But just because the FBI is finished does not mean that park is open to the public yet.
Is there an estimation on when it will reopen?
I would imagine it would be relatively soon. A lot of that depends on how fast we can get a hold of people and how fast they can get in, but we're hoping within the next day or two. Okay,
One last
thank you.
question, anybody? One last question. Thank you all.